Moving to another interesting concept, what does a disease look like? Does it have hair or it has some horns? So, whenever a person is suffering from a disease, mainly the person says that he or she is not well, basically unwell, because the illness affects the functioning of organ system. So patient is not enjoying that stage and may also lead to change in appearance, of the organ system. Then what will happen? Patient may show certain symptoms which indicate a disease. So all these changes, these leads to symptoms which indicate a disease. What is a symptom? A change in the normal functioning of the body. Okay, when there is a change in the normal functioning of the body, we say yes, a person is showing symptoms related to any organ. What can be that? A headache, fever, stomach ache, vomiting, nausea, cough. These all are symptoms. What is indicating a symptom? Symptoms indicate the presence of a disease. A doctor always asks the patient about the symptoms in order to know about the disease. Like if you visit a doctor would ask you what you had taken in your meals, what kind of feeling your body is giving every time. Are you tired? Are you feeling sick? So the symptoms only indicate that person. What do symptoms indicate? Symptoms indicate that the person who's suffering from a disease is person suffering from a disease is not feeling well at all. Not feeling well at all. It cannot specify the disease. That person is having this particular disease. You may have a headache. It may be the examination stress. It may be because you might not have good sleep. You have not taken proper meals. So it can cause you headache. But it cannot specify that why you have got this headache. Right? Same way, the symptoms which are indicating only the disease, only the suffering, cannot merely specify the problem. These sign and symptom help the patient to diagnose. But you know what is a sign? It's a little more indicative of a disease. Means this is little more close to a disease. A sign will be specific for a specific disease. These may help the doctor to come to the conclusion and to know exactly what the disease is and what kind of disease the person is suffering from. Why? Because if symptoms which are quite general, signs which will become more specific will help the doctor to ask you to get your urine, stool or blood test done. On that basis, the doctor can confirm your disease. So this is how a disease is basically looked after, that how do we get to know that you are diseased. Then when we are talking about infectious and non-infectious diseases, moving to infectious diseases in detail. We say that diseases which are transmitted from one individual to another, transmitted from one individual to another individual, directly or indirectly. These are known as infectious diseases. Can be caused by bacteria like tuberculosis, pneumonia, tetanus, diphtheria, leprosy, typhoid, cholera, and diarrhea. Okay, this is number one. Number two, can be caused by a virus. These include polio, influenza, smallpox, herpes, dengue, measles, hepatitis, AIDS. Can be caused by fungi, like food poisoning, skin disease, nail degeneration, dead ringworm disease, athlete's foot, right? And then number four, by protozoa. Protozoan diseases could be malaria, Kala Azar, sleeping sickness, amoebic, dysentery caused by Entamoeba histolytica. Then is diseases caused by worms. These can be filariasis, elephantiasis, as well as ascariasis. All the diseases are ending with ASIS: filariasis, elephantiasis, and ascariasis. These are not the only diseases. We have listed a few. Okay. Now, the next question which comes to our mind is, why do we need to classify pathogens? Why we cannot say that this is also a bacterial disease, this one is a viral disease, this one not a fungal disease but a bacterial and a viral disease? Why do we need to classify? Because all of these different pathogens, they differ from each other in their mode of action. What kind of action do they show? The treatment, the action is basically how do they play with our cells and they cause infection. So the question comes to our mind, why do we need to classify pathogens? Right, we need to classify because they differ from each other. In several ways. And secondly, the treatment given for a particular category, it will not work for the other category, right? And the treatment given for a particular category will not work for other categories. Example, a drug that kills a particular type of infectious agent is not effective against the other type. So, members belonging to this group, like this is the bacterial group. Members belonging to this bacterial group have many similarities in structure and biochemical pathways. and these biochemical pathways are not shared by the members of the other group. Whatever the biochemical pathways are shown by these bacteria for their growth in the body and development in the body, these are not shared by others. Clear? So these will not be same as viruses do. These are not same to the fungi, not to the worms, rather not to the pathogens. Their pathways are different. Such similarities in structure and biochemical pathways which are not shared blocks the effective members so as to share their common passage. That means if I am providing an antibiotic treatment for the bacterial problem, that will not be effective against this virus, this fungi, this worm and this pathogenic infection, because this antibiotic has its own way of killing the biochemical pathway that the bacteria takes into action. Alright, so I'm writing it down. Members belonging to a particular group we can take any example like bacteria also. They have similarities in structure and biochemical pathways. These are not shared at all by the members of other group. Clear? So antibiotics, I'm taking an example of bacterial infection only. A drug that blocks one of the biochemical pathways of one group will be effective against many members of the same group, but not against any other member of a different group. Like in case of antibiotic, I have given antibiotic to a patient who has got bacterial infection. Now, this antibiotic which has been given, what will it do? It will block the biochemical pathway. This bacteria has its own biochemical pathway, right? Supposingly, the biochemical pathway we are talking about is its mode of action. So this antibiotic will block this biochemical pathway, will not allow it to make a cell wall or create any kind of cell wall which will help it to grow. So what is being done? Antibiotics block the biochemical pathways which are important for bacteria to show its action. Like antibiotic penicillin. The penicillin antibiotic, it will inhibit the processes that build their cell wall. This is the cell wall of a bacteria which it generally makes to show action. I have given the patient antibiotic penicillin. This will not help the bacteria to make this cell wall. तो ultimately क्या होगा? उसका protective cover तो गया. As a result, the bacteria will die because bacteria use this process to build the cell wall. That is, its biochemical pathway is to make the cell wall to protect itself and to show its action in the body. But if this penicillin is not allowing the bacteria to make this cell wall, what will happen? Bacteria will not survive. Ultimately, this antibiotic is effective against bacteria, right? But virus does not work in such manner. Virus does not form these biochemical pathways. So if I am using penicillin antibiotic, this will be effective only against bacterial infection, not against the viral infection. Why? Because viral mode of action is not same as that of a bacteria. Viruses do not have such pathways. They do not use such pathways at all. So antibiotic is not at all good for killing bacteria. But antibiotic is very good for killing any bacterial infection. And all the bacteria, they work in the same manner. All the bacteria, they use the same biochemical pathway. That means they make the same cell wall around them first, then they cause infection. Okay, we are using this antibiotic to kill the bacterial cell wall. A question comes to our mind. If it is killing the cell wall of bacteria, which it makes to protect itself, isn't this antibiotic harmful for us? It can kill our cells too, right? But here is a twist. Our body cells do not make cell wall. So this antibiotic will not kill our cells. It will only kill the bacteria which is going to make the cell wall to protect itself. Therefore, bacterial infection got eroded because of using antibiotics. But antibiotics are only effective against bacterial, not against viral diseases. Clear? Now, how do infectious diseases spread? How do infectious diseases spread? Again, there are various agents. Now, what are the main agents which will help in this spread? Number one, through air. Why? Because certain diseases like infectious diseases like TB, it can easily spread through air. An individual acquire the infection of TB by inhaling droplets of a patient which are expelled through cough, maybe through cough or maybe through sputum, and these are suspended in the air. Another one is common cold. Then another one is influenza. Here we are not categorizing that only bacterial diseases or only viral diseases are carried through air. Infectious diseases, we are talking about which all diseases, may it be viral, bacteria, fungi, pathogen, worm, which all diseases are carried by air, water and the various other means. Number two, contaminated food and water. Contaminated food and water. A large number of infectious diseases which are carried. Basically, diseases causing organism and harmful pollutants in the form of chemicals also enter through water and the food that we drink. Like cholera with infected water, hepatitis A with infected water, diarrhea too. Okay, all through contaminated food and water. And what helps in doing that? Pollutants. Number three, through vector. Which all are vector-borne diseases? See, many animals and insects also carry the infectious agents. उनको हम बोलते हैं vector. Any animal or insect that carry the infectious agent is known as a vector. Vector-borne diseases, first of all, meaning of vector is a carrier of a disease. It could be an animal, it could be an insect, a microbe, but is a carrier of a disease. So they carry diseases or infections from one patient to another. Disease like dengue, please don't call it dengue, dengue and malaria. These spread through mosquitoes, and malarial parasite enters the human body through the bite of infected female Anopheles mosquito. Why female? Why not male? Because female has to lay eggs and she needs highly rich nutritious diet, and males always act on the plant nectar, sap which is coming out of the stem and the root. So basically males act on the plant sap and the female on blood. Then in other countries we have found sleeping sickness disease. It is caused by sleeping sickness disease. It is caused by protozoa, and name of that protozoa is Trypanosoma. Clear? And which carrier, which vector is basically bringing this protozoa to cause sleeping sickness is, it's a fly. The vector is a fly, and the name of that fly is tsetse fly. Okay, T is silent. Tsetse fly, which brings the infection, which brings this vector fly carries the Trypanosoma protozoa in its mouth, and it causes this sleeping sickness infection. Clear? Same as the rabies virus enters the human body through the saliva of the rabid animal, which is a dog. Then number 4, through virus. Which all diseases? Chicken pox, ringworm, AIDS, syphilis, these are the viral diseases. Okay, moving to in detail of AIDS viral disease. What is the full form of AIDS? We call it as acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome किस चीज़ के ऊपर हमने अटैक किया है? इम्यूनिटी के ऊपर. Okay, it's basically a disease which is caused by HIV virus, human immunodeficiency virus. Now it's obviously clear that this disease is somewhat related to something that has to do with immunity. You know, this disease, it is postulated that this disease have passed from a monkey or a chimpanzee host into the human population in 1960s. Then this breaks down the body's system, leaving the victims vulnerable to various infections, neurological disorders, maybe cancer. So this AIDS patient basically dies from secondary infection. What does it mean? Secondary infection means because the failure of the defense mechanism of a person's body, patient may not be able to fight with any disease. Okay, because of failure of his or her defense system. So patient is not able to fight with any disease, may it be a simple common cold, because this defense system is not working. So AIDS patient may die because of pneumonia, skin cancer, bone marrow infection, and many other diseases, because the root cause is not known. We say that patient has got AIDS, but actually AIDS means the failure of his or her defense system, which has led to other factors in the body, and other diseases have killed the person. So what could be the symptoms? No specific symptoms. First of all, no specific symptoms arise. As the disease progresses, patient may develop symptoms like, it's only when the disease progresses, swollen lymph nodes, then fever, then headache, then sore throat, then is weight loss, Then is diarrhea. It depends. Many patients remain symptom free for 8 to 9 years. And during the last phase, that means after 10 to 11 years of initial infection, patient becomes susceptible to large number of bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic infections and die because of any of these infections. Then how it transmits? Okay, coming to the transmission, the mode of transmission. First of all, unprotected sexual intercourse with an HIV infected person. Right? Secondly, use of contaminated shaving razor, needles and syringes. Contaminated, right? Number 3, by the transfusion of infected blood. Number 4, transmission of infected mother. This transmission from infected mother to the fetus. Transmission of what? Transmission of blood, transmission of antibodies, transmission of nutrients. Then number 5, breastfeeding by infected mother to her baby. And how it is to be prevented. Now, one thing, when we move to prevention, we need to know how this is not prevented or transmitted. Basically, how this is not transmitted. It is not transmitted by simple hug, handshake, sharing the telephone, sharing the utensils, meals, eating together, then sneezing, through vectors, through mosquitoes, through bed bugs. All these agents will not help in transmission of AIDS. It is only transmitted when there is serum to serum and blood to blood contact. Okay, that means fluid to fluid contact. Clear? Prevention. First is always education. Education plays an important role. When we educate people of the high risk, then this is always make people alert. Then use of condoms and cervical caps by people. Number 3, avoiding blood transfusion, and it has to be done through the screening test. Screening test is to be done from any transfusion. Number 4, not sharing toothbrush or razor, syringes with other person. Okay, and we have to switch over to disposable syringes and needles. And when is the World AIDS Day celebrated? It's on 1st December every year. What for? This is the day. This is the World AIDS Day. And this day is to bring awareness among people about AIDS and its prevention.